Hello and welcome back to our news channel. Students, today we have two news stories, and uh, one out of those two news articles, one we comes from the heart of Indian farmlands, and the other it is about outer space. Okay, so today we are going to explore two news articles. Why Indian farmers keep choosing rice and wheat even when other crops might seem profitable. And then we have second article which basically deals with a mind-blowing journey of a Soviet spacecraft that returned to Earth after a period of 53 years in space. Yes, that's right. So grab your headphones and a notebook if you like, and because we are going deep, but in a way that's super simple, amazing, and super fun. Okay, now let's start with a big question. Why do Indian farmers prefer to grow rice and wheat year after year, even when other crops might sell at better prices? Now, at first glance, it might seem to you that because government buys rice and wheat at minimum support prices, है ना? क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट ही खरीदती है at minimum support price. Now, what is minimum support price? We have covered this thing many times in an article. Okay, it's a minimum price provided by uh, government to farmers. So in case farmers they are not getting right price for their crop, so MSP provides them a sort of cushion. Okay, uh, and it helps them to protect themselves from the price fluctuation. Okay, so why farmers they prefer to grow rice and wheat? First, because of course government buys rice and wheat at minimum support price. That means what? Again, no matter what happens in the open market, farmers will get a fixed price from the government if they grow these crops, and it feels safe, right? But the truth is, students, there's more to it than just MSP. MSP के अलावा और भी बहुत सारे रीजन है ना? Think like a farmer for a moment. Okay, imagine you are growing crops. What would you want? आप क्या चाहोगे? अगर आप क्रॉप ग्रो कर रहे हो, ओके, तो आप क्या चाहोगे? You want good price for your crop. You want good harvest, of course, and less risk of your crop failing. Also, you want a crop that's not too demanding, meaning that it requires less water, fewer chemicals, and less worry. That's exactly why rice and wheat win the game. So there are also certain data as mentioned in the news article, like in Punjab, okay, the land used for winter rice it has increased. It has actually increased from the year 2015 से लेकर 2025 तक. Okay, so land under cultivation for rice has increased. Similarly, in Telangana, it went from 10 lakh hectares to 14. मध्य प्रदेश में भी हम ऐसे ही देख रहे हैं कि wheat and rice cultivation it actually has increased a lot, while crops like cotton and pulses have declined. Why? Well, it's not just MSP. It's also about yield assurance. Okay. See, जब हम इंडिया में अगर क्रॉप प्रोडक्शन की बात करते हैं, so we also need to talk about an important event, right? Green Revolution. So back in the 1960s or 70s, what happened? India was facing food shortages. So scientists they came up with special high yield varieties of wheat and rice, and this you have already studied in your social science, right? So these high yield varieties they weren't your average tall weak stem plants. These were semi dwarf, strong, and they could handle heavy grains, fertilizers, irrigation. Okay. सो अगर हम वीट की बात करते हैं तो सबसे पहले जो सुपरस्टार वैरायटी थी वो था कल्याण सोना. ओके, फिर धीरे धीरे बहुत सारे वैरायटीज आते गए एंड इट इंक्रीज द यील्ड of a crop. And that's impressive, right? So farmers know if they grow wheat, there's a high chance of getting a good harvest and the crop won't collapse or get diseased easily. So that's like studying for an exam with a good textbook and a tutor. Your chances of success, it goes way up, right? Now what about rice? Same story. Traditional rice varieties took up to, you know, 180 days to grow. 180 days to grow and gave 1 to 3 tons. 180 days lag rahe, 1 to 3 tons. Then came IR8. IR8 new high yielding variety जब introduce किया गया, so it increased the yield from 1 to 3 ton to 4.5 tons, 4.5 to 5 tons. और ऊपर से टाइम भी कम लग रहा था, 50 डेज कम हो गया. मतलब पहले ट्रेडिशनल राइस को कितना टाइम लग रहा था, 180 डेज टाइम लग रहा था पूरा प्रॉपरली ग्रो करने के लिए, एंड इट इज गिविंग 1 to 3 tons. ऑन दी अदर हैंड जो न्यू वैरायटी थी, it is taking only 130 days and it is giving 4.5 to 5 tons. तो ऐसे न्यू न्यू वेराइटीज आती गई. नाउ दे आर यूजिंग न्यू टेक्नोलॉजी, हाई टेक technology they are also using, like gene editing, so that they can make plants more resistant to drought, salt in water, and even high temperature. So one variety, which is also mentioned in this news article, pusa pusa DST rice 1, it can survive even in salty or dry soils. So this means less water, less fertilizer, and more food. But what about other crops? जैसे oil seeds हो गया, pulses हो गया. Now here's the sad part. See, they haven't received the same amount of research support, you know. So yield are low, pests are a consistent problem, no MSP assurance for all the crops, no big breakthroughs. So even if the market price of a mustard or chana is high, farmers they usually think twice before growing them, right? तो ये सारा कुछ इस आर्टिकल में मेंशन्ड है. व्हाई फार्मर्स दे प्रेफर राइस एंड व्हीट. ओके, सबसे पहले क्या हमने समझा कि एक सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट रीजन क्या है, बिकॉज ऑफ कोर्स दे गिव हायर एंड मोर रिलायबल यील्ड्स, गवर्नमेंट बाइज देम एट फिक्स्ड प्राइसेस, they are resistant to disease and weather issues, and farmers they feel safe and secure growing them. The downside, of course, this leads to what? Imbalance. So less production of oil seeds, pulses. It means that more water is being used for rice and wheat, and we know rice is quite a water intensive crop. वाटर इंटेंसिव क्रॉप है, और सबसे ज्यादा वाटर कहाँ से एक्सट्रैक्ट किया जाता है एग्रीकल्चर के लिए? फ्रॉम अंडरग्राउंड. सो दैट इज द रीजन व्हाई अंडरग्राउंड वाटर लेवल इज decreasing. Okay, so going forward, scientists and policymakers, what they need to do, they need to invest more in other crops too, so farmers can diversify safely. And of course it is also good for our well-being. See, these crops like millets ho gaya, they are known as superfoods. They have low glycemic index. Okay, and that makes them healthy for us, right? तो ये सारी चीजें हैं. Now let's go to the second article of the day. Students, imagine this: a spacecraft that is just launched before your parents were even born, and now it came crashing back to earth last week, this year only. Now this sounds like a science fiction, right? But it's actually not. It's a science fact. Now let me tell you the amazing story of Cosmos 482. Okay, this is Cosmos 482. Now in that was the year of 1972. Soviet Union. Okay, Russia का भी breakdown नहीं हुआ था. Russia was still Soviet Union. So Soviet Union launched a mission to Venus, our neighboring planet. It was part of their Venera program, a series, basically that is sort of space mission, series of space missions that sent probes to study the planet. So Venus is super interesting. Why? Why? You have studied in your EVS classes, because it's similar in size to Earth. It has extreme heat. Extreme heat है वहां पे. Temperature rises up to 466 degrees Celsius, and pressure 90 times higher than Earth. So many Soviet probes, they tried and failed. Some survived only for 20 to 120 minutes on the surface, but they made history. Why? Because Soviet, they were the first to land on another planet. They were the first to record sound on another world. First to enter another planet's atmosphere. Now, talking about Cosmos 482, it was launched in the year 1972, March 31, just a few days after its twin Venera 8, which successfully landed on Venus. So, what went wrong? Students, Cosmos 482 rocket, it malfunctioned. A timer was set incorrectly and the rocket shut off early. That meant it couldn't escape Earth's gravity. It got stuck in orbit around Earth. Yes, what could it mean? Or one heavy part, a lander module separated and stayed in space. Yes, that is what actually happened. The main spacecraft, it burned up, but the lander, a 495 chunk made of titanium. Yes, yes. So 495 kg chunk that was made of titanium, जो lander था, it just kept going round and round the earth for 53 years. Yes, है ना? अब अगर रॉकेट अगर जल्दी से बंद हो जाएगा तो हम क्या समझेंगे कि शायद अर्थ की ग्रेविटी को एस्केप नहीं कर पाया या फिर अर्थ के ऑर्बिट में ही स्टक हो गया। लेकिन इस केस में क्या हुआ कि एक जो हैवी पार्ट था लैंडर मॉड्यूल, इट गॉट सेपरेटेड एंड इट स्टेड इन स्पेस एंड मेन स्पेसक्राफ्ट बर्न अप हो गया। लेकिन जो लैंडर था दैट वाज मेड अप ऑफ 495 kg of titanium. It just kept going round and round the earth for 53 years. Okay, and on May 11, 2025, that piece finally crashed into the Indian Ocean near Jakarta. Nobody was hurt, no damage happened. Why? Because scientists had already predicted that if it fell, it would likely land in the ocean. Also, the lander was made of titanium, which melts only at 1700 degrees Celsius. That's why it didn't burn up like most space junk. Now, you might be thinking, why couldn't scientists predict exactly where it would fall? Student, that's a good question. See, the re-entry into Earth's atmosphere, it was uncontrolled. It was not being controlled by uh, Russian space agency. The lander had no brakes, it had no parachute, and no way to show down. Okay, it was traveling at the speed of 28,000 miles per hour. So no way it could be slowed down. So even a small change in direction, it could make a big difference in the crash location. That is why predicting exact crash points is really hard. Like guessing where a leaf will fall in a storm. It is similar to that only. Okay. Now, what about other space junk? See, space agencies, they are keeping an eye on space debris. Okay. And more than in space, it's actually more than 2,400 pieces of space junk fell back to Earth in 2022 alone. 2022 alone, mein hi 2,400 pieces of space junk it fell back to Earth. So most burn up, some splash down, and luckily no one has ever died due to falling space junk. And according to the European Space Agency, the chance of being hit by a space junk is actually 1 in 10 billion. तो अगर आप सोचो कि अरे मैम कभी ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि क्या पता स्पेस जंक हमारे सर पे गिर जाए, नो, द चांस ऑफ बीइंग हिट बाय स्पेस जंक इज 1 in 10 billion and you are 65,000 times more likely to be struck by lightning. Yes, that is true. Okay, तो उससे ज्यादा चांसेस किससे हैं कि लाइटनिंग स्ट्रक होने के. स्टिल कंट्रीज आर नाउ दे आर वर्किंग टू मेक स्पेस ट्रैवल क्लीनर एंड सेफर, राइट? तो ये था इस पूरे आर्टिकल में क्या क्या हमने देखा. Cosmos 482, it was a Soviet spacecraft launched in 1972. It failed to leave Earth's orbit because of a rocket error. And then A heavy lander piece stayed in space for 53 years. It now finally crashed into the ocean in May. Okay. And titanium, because it was made of titanium, it saved it from burning up. Okay. Students, one more thing which this article deals with is space junk. And it's a real issue, but so far, not very dangerous. Right? Still, there are many treaties that have been signed so that, we need to make space debris free. We have Project Netra, right? There's also uh, Kessler syndrome, a phenomenon called Kessler syndrome, which we have discussed many times in our podcast. And this is related to space debris. Now, you're going to tell me what exactly is Kessler syndrome. This is related to what? Space debris. Okay? Students, now that's a wrap on today's episode. So, from why farmers trust wheat and rice to how a Soviet spacecraft made a surprise return after half a century, we have explored two news articles. Okay, so that's all for today. And until next time, keep asking questions, keep exploring, and stay curious. Bye bye.